Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Steve Chiama, and I'm the franchise owner of Action Coach Western Fairfax. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have the pleasure to introduce Gresham Harkless Jr., the CEO and founder of Blue Star Franchise and Blue 16 Media, as my guest. So today we're going to talk to Gresham about his business, his journey into business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to own and operate and build a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when a new show like this one drops. So Gresham, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here today. So please, if you would, give us a little background about who you are and tell us a little bit about your businesses.
Absolutely, Steven. Super excited to be here. We've been rubbing elbows, over the years. So I'm glad we got a chance to kind of connect and
Mhm.
collaborate and do some awesome things. But as for me, like I've always kind of described myself as very much so a busybody. I like to be involved in a lot of different things. And you ask my parents, I've always been like that. I've always been involved in a lot of different things. And one of my big, things that I always looked at, as my, I think, coming of age story, at least a seed that was planted when I was younger, is I was a kid that sold potato chips on the playground. I did a lot of, getting my parents to go to MJ Designs to buy a bead so I could create necklaces and sell those and do all those things as a kid. But I think my I guess pillar moment was when I was 10 years old. My dad was reassigned. He was in the Air Force, got reassigned to go to a different country for a year. And at that time, I started what was then a family newspaper. That family newspaper was not, grand newspaper, but it was me in front of a Microsoft Word document, putting clip art there and literally putting in all the stories that were happening in our family. So everything from my cousin that was born to what were the scores of the NBA Finals game to a squirrel that got into my grandma's house and to all those things that were happening in our family. So for me, I was that roving reporter, that TMZ for the family. But it happened like when we didn't have all the tools that we have today to like instantly connect it. And, I got to print those out. I would sell the subscriptions to the family members and I would put them in a care box that we sent to my dad every month as well too, with honey buns and oatmeal cream pies and all the things that he enjoyed. But the reason I usually bring that up is because not only, was I in the DC area then, I'm still in the DC area now. Been here pretty much since I can remember, since I was five or so. But it was one of those things that I felt like this reminded me of who I am. And I always go back to that. Any time I go through any like fork in the road moments and I say, should I go left? Should I go right? I ask myself, what would 10-year-old Gresh do? Because I feel like that's the essence of like who I am. So went to Howard for my undergrad, went to Georgetown for my master's, bounced around during the economic crisis, got laid off from a job, took another job, got laid off from that. And basically I just started to like go into the things I was passionate about. I started to interview entrepreneurs and business owners myself because I felt like I had those tendencies and I didn't know what it was, but I just wanted to learn from others. So did a lot of freelance writing, covering entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners. The long and short of that, I tore my Achilles tendon and got stuck in bed. Started a digital marketing business probably about 10, 12 years ago. Along the same lines of that was interviewing business owners, had a blog became a daily podcast. And eventually a couple years ago or a year or so ago, I started a franchise brokerage business. So all of it's around the lines of like entrepreneurship. I like to say like I help people to market, to grow, and to find their entrepreneurial ventures. And that's kind of like how everything kind of comes together. But yeah, it was definitely not the straight path that I thought it was, that I hoped it was. It was very, very windy. And as I like to joke on my podcast, it's like the success or the road was a much more like a plate of spaghetti than the straight and linear path that we sometimes think it is.
Yeah, well, have you ever found anybody who followed a linear path?
I wish. I thought it was going to be me. It turned out it wasn't.
Yeah, it never really is. So let's give the listeners a little bit of context about businesses as a business structure. How are your businesses structured? Are you solo owner? Are there partners? Are there investors? How is this packaged together?
Yeah, so these businesses, I basically bootstrapped myself. I've been a solo owner. I have a team of like contractors, 1099s that kind of work on different things depending on what the business is. I actually went through a little bit of a restructuring over the last like year or so that we've been kind of working on with, technology and all those things that are happening at a rapid pace is start, how do we as a team start to become a little bit leaner, but at the same
Mhm.
time leverage technology. And that's been some of the shift is like even when I first started, it was a lot more of like your success was determined by the number of employees that you had. If you had like, 100 people, then you must have a successful business. But now I think one of the shifts that I've seen, and, I've had people even on the show that talk around like one person business and $1 million business that, have only one employee, so to speak. I think the metric or the KPI, I guess you could say, has changed and evolved from there. So just trying to evolve from there too.
Cool. Where do you see it? Where do you see that going? Do you see the ability to scale up just as a solo owner with contractors?
I do. I really do. I think that I think if you are able to be very niche focused in the thing that you're executing,
Hmm.
I think you can really do that. And I think a lot of that means that you are like kind of really owning one part of the business. And what I've tried to like build and grow, like I kind of alluded to, is like, for lack of a better term, kind of like an ecosystem around entrepreneurship and business. The interviewing, having the entrepreneurial conversations are just a way to kind of open up doors towards, other avenues. And the way I always saw it is that it would be some where we provide a service or provide some type of, product or something along those lines. But frankly, too, it's a lot of, joint venture, collaboration, affiliate relationships, all those things of like, we don't necessarily do this, but I've connected with people enough. I had enough conversations where I can connect you with somebody that can help you. So I wanted to be a little bit more of a ecosystem, but not necessarily
Hmm.
do all the things, if that makes sense.
Awesome, awesome. Just kind of following that theme in business, there's an awful lot of hats that have to be worn, ranging anywhere from find the leads, close the leads, do the work, do the bookkeeping, do the cleanup, do all of these extra little things. How do you control all of that in a solo person contractor environment? How do you see that going?
I think you start to, first of all, you want to understand that whole journey that you talked about. I
Hmm.
think that most of the time that people think that you create or have a product or service, people are knocking down the door to kind of come talk with you. You don't have to do anything. You just kind of sit back and eat
Yeah,
bonbons and,
good
and,
luck.
and do all those things. And people will come and find you. But really, once you start to realize that there is a journey, even
Hmm.
for a potential customer, even, before that, even when people hear about you or hear
Mm.
about what you do, or they're even searching for what you're looking for, that's where the journey actually starts. And you want to try to be there as much as possible. So I think the idea is first and foremost, I try to like learn as much as I can around like what that journey looks like. And
Hmm.
then you start to really, drill down on like what piece of that journey are you going to kind of own more. So like
Hmm.
you and I are part of a networking group as well
Hmm.
too. And part of that helps to, I think, minimize the amount of time and the quality of the people that are coming through your door. So that's something that I learned pretty quickly is that yes, we do digital marketing. Yes, have people online. Yes, I connect with
Hmm.
people online. People come, off our website and say, "Hey,
Hmm.
can we, work with you?" But I've known that the quality of the people are a lot more if they go through some type of process. And some of that comes from
Okay.
people that are networking. Some of that comes because you have like a refined process through to help generate, what is an ideal customer. But I think it's understanding those things because I think, I myself had the misconception of like, hey, I'm really good at what I do. Everybody loves me, so that everybody's just going to come through the door, and that doesn't always happen.
Doesn't work that way, does it?
If
Not
only.
quite
If
so easily.
only.
Yeah, if only, if only. Let's talk a little bit about that customer. Who's the ideal customer? If I was out there searching, how would I know you're the one I should find?
Yeah, we really tried to connect with in that entire ecosystem with people. I call them builders.
Hmm.
Builders are the people that are potentially working more in the business rather than on the business. And if you
Hmm.
listen to the E-Myth, you've heard the E-Myth. I think is one of the biggest things that people don't realize around entrepreneurship. And especially like even in the franchise business where I talk with people that think that they want to start something and they say, "Hey, I'm really great at home remodeling, or I'm really great at sales, or I'm really great at this, or I'm really great at that. So I want to start a business around that." But when you start to realize that even in franchising, even in all businesses, you're really going to focus on some core competencies that are going to allow you to be able to scale and to be able to grow. So I call those people the builders because often the builders are the people you described, where you not only are you working on sales, you're working on marketing, your HR, you're mopping, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing all the things. And as much as you want to do all the things, and you might even be great at most of the things, you shouldn't do all of them. You want to find out
Hmm.
what you're world class at. So it's usually before people understand that, before people start to get out of the hammering, out of doing all the things, and they know that they want to do something better. Now that
Hmm.
can be marketing. It can be like maybe one of the other ways in terms of like hiring people, whatever that might be that I can connect them with. But at the end of the day, it's that realization of, hey, I no longer want to be a builder. I want to move to an architect to work more on the business than in the business. So those end up being like the really great people. It
Hmm.
happens at different stages. It can happen when they're just maybe starting out and thinking about starting a
Yeah.
business, but it could also happen as like I've been doing this for 10 years and I have not been able to kind of get ahead. Like,
Hmm.
how can I stop the insanity and be able to kind of help that transition?
Got it. Got it. Got it. What makes you unique? Why you?
I think going back to 10-year-old Gresh, I have this mentality and this mindset and this philosophy even around, marketing where I say like everybody is a media company.
Hmm.
And it's not just me believing that, it's like me employing that. I've done over 2,000 podcast episodes. I've really like interviewed and have thousands and thousands of blog posts where we've featured people of being that media company. So I'm a true believer in that the way to be able to serve your clients is to provide them something of value. And I believe that media is a great way to do that. And I have an analogy where I say like everybody should approach their marketing like they're trying to cook their favorite dish and going to the grocery store to make that happen. You start to look at the ingredients and you figure out, how do these ingredients help me to make the dish? Most people, when they're marketing, they go to the grocery store hungry and they just throw everything in the cart because they say, "Hey, I heard I should have this. This is popular. This might be on sale. So let me add all those things in." And they come back and, the dish tastes like they threw everything in the cart. And when you're strategic around what it is that you're doing, then you're going to make sure that you're serving that. So when I mentioned that word ecosystem, a lot of it was because I knew when I started that I was running the digital marketing business. I was doing the interviews and doing all those things. And I even had some other businesses that I was starting at the same time. And I was burning out, honestly. I said, this is not sustainable. I can't do all these things.
Hmm.
So it took me having to realize, like, hey, what do I want to be world class in? What do I really want to own and spend my time and energy towards? And I can, maybe add on other things later if they're in alignment.
Hmm.
But I realized that, hey, the digital marketing was going to be that thing. But then I started to realize, like, hey, what do I want? The thing that I can hold my hat on to say, hey, I'm unique. And that's where the
Yeah.
podcast, the blog, all those things were already there. So I started to combine a lot of those things so that I could continue to kind of
Oh,
roll in that same direction.
got it. Now it makes sense. Very, very, very good. Let's kind of segue from that. There's kind of a question that rolls around in my mind from that. If you think back on this journey, what's a memorable hurdle that you've found a way to overcome that's helped you really jump forward?
Um, I kind of touched on it. I think it had to be when I first started, and that's probably like the worst moment that I've had. But like I said, I feel like I've always had those entrepreneurial tendencies. So I went about telling everybody, hey, I think I want to start a business. I think this is what I want to do. I'm talking with these business owners. I feel like I'm at home. These are my people. This is really what I want to
Hmm.
do. So I got a lot of, no, you shouldn't do that. Nah, not now, maybe later. So I got a lot of no's, even from people that I was closest with,
Uh,
and that was really, really difficult. But I'm can be hard-headed at times. I'll say it that way. And I said, you know what? I bounced around to a job. I got laid off from job. Went to another job, got laid off, and I said, hey, I did everything I was supposed to do. I got the bachelor's degree, I got the master's, I did this, I did that, I checked off all the boxes. Things still are not going, the way that I want them to go. So I said, hey, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do the thing. I'm gonna start freelance writing. I did it on the side for a little bit while I was working. I'm just gonna go all in, and I went all in. And I like to tell everybody I took a leap of faith, and on the 45th day, about 2 weeks after my insurance um expired, I landed on my Achilles. And so I tore my Achilles tendon and I was stuck in bed. And I was not a happy camper. I mean, I
Yeah.
think what that hurdle was not just the physical part of like tearing your Achilles. Luckily, I didn't tear it completely, but I tore it enough to be like a stuck in bed and having to learn how to walk and do all those things again. But I think it was like the mental part, the emotional part of like doing something bold, chasing your dream, going after it, and it not going the way you want it to go. So I would say that was probably the biggest, hurdle that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, frankly, I could probably even say like that's something that you still kind of think about on a regular basis. Because you do something bold and it doesn't work out, it makes you a
Hmm.
little bit more skittish to do it again. So I think that was the thing that I kind of worked through. But to your point, Steven, and that's why I love like having conversations with you when you start to look at the people that are successful and however we define it, and you look at their stories, maybe they don't tear their Achilles, but maybe, they go bankrupt. Maybe, they strike out when they try this thing or that
Yes.
thing. You start to realize that actually is part of the journey. And
Mm-hmm.
me having those stories and conversations helped out a lot. My faith helped out a lot. But I think definitely like understanding that it's not that I was doing it wrong per se. Sometimes those speed bumps, those roadblocks, those setbacks are actually part of the journey.
I think that's a great way to put it. They are part of the journey. It's if you don't know enough, how do you find out? If you take up riding a bicycle, how do you find out the right way to ride a bicycle?
Exactly.
It's the same thing. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. So you're sitting here, you've accomplished a lot. You've brought these businesses to where they are now. Where do you see taking them in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think leaning even more into that ecosystem piece is really what I plan
Hmm.
on doing. Really building out the media aspect, the media company.
Hmm.
I think even from a perspective of like, you kind of spoke to it, I think before we jumped on, is like not trying to do all the things that try to lean more into your superpower, your secret sauce, as I like to call it. And
Hmm.
that's really what I want to do is to look more into that content creation, look more into how to serve the clients and create kind of niche audience and niche sites in order to do that because I think the more we can spend on in that space and less
Hmm.
maybe doing the things that we aren't as great at is
Hmm.
just going to allow us to serve on a bigger level. So that's
Yeah.
like a lot of the transition that I'm kind of working on, and that's part of the
Hmm.
reason that kind of even led me to the franchise space is because like yes, entrepreneurship can be really broad, but franchise is a niche within entrepreneurship. Is it a
Hmm.
great fit for everybody? No, but it's a great fit for certain people. So
Hmm.
starting to create more content and information around that, because I think that there's a dearth of
Yeah.
information around
Yeah.
franchising, around what it is, what it can look like. And that's something that I really want to kind of lean more into is like, how can I find these niche opportunities, these niche audiences, especially related to entrepreneurship, and start to serve those on a better level. And I think as we take a step back from maybe like more of the service and product and do more joint ventures and affiliate relationships and things
Hmm.
like that, then it'll allow us to spend more time on where we should be spending.
Awesome. 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 What do you see that doing for you personally? Where do you see your personal growth going?
Pure alignment. Go again. I'll go back to 10-year-old Gresh. 10-year-old Gresh would be saying, "Hey, you should have been doing this sooner," because I think that's me kind of being in my genius. I
Hmm.
think a lot of times, I'm a big believer in that. Sometimes you have to do a lot to do a little, to do a lot to do a little less, to do a lot to do a little less. And
Hmm.
I'm one of those people that likes to like try out different things and test out things, A/B tests or whatever you might call it, to see like what works for me. And I think as I've done, multiple things and, having ventures that, didn't even work out, that I've tried
Yeah.
and things like that, it starts to make you realize that maybe that wasn't the right spot, maybe it wasn't the
Hmm.
right thing. And you start to like be more refined. So I think me being able to kind of be in more of my power, increases your confidence, increases your awareness. And like I like to say, if you run your own race, you can't lose. But the more you lean into that race, the more it's going to allow you to be able to kind of be better.
Yeah. Good. 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 Based on what you've learned and the successes you've had and the challenges you've had, if you were going to start the business over again today, knowing all of that, what would you do different?
Ooh, I love that question. Honestly, one thing I probably wouldn't do is allow my insurance to lapse for 45 days before I take that leave. That'll be the first thing I'll go back and
That's a
change.
good one.
I think there's a less painful way to learn that lesson, and I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
would
yeah, yeah,
probably do that.
yeah.
But on a serious note, I mean, I think that I probably would have leaned more into that content piece. The piece that the transition that I'm trying to make now, I probably would have did that sooner. I probably would have tried to learn as much as I can around all aspects of entrepreneurship and just gone in terms of like creating more and more content around there. So I don't know necessarily that I would have, hindsight's 2020 because I think if I had done it that way, I probably would have been like, hey, I think I could do this other service or this other product and probably would have tried that at another point. But I think the more I can have the foundation of the business be in my superpower, I think the
Mhm.
better off I would have been. So I probably would have and I will kind of lean more into that too.
Perfect, perfect. And I'm just kind of thinking about something you said there about contractors and such. What would how do you got a team of people doing stuff? What's your leadership style that you've evolved from that? And this is kind of unique because these guys don't have allegiances
Hmm.
necessarily. So it's a little bit different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's maybe an understanding more of that, of the evolution of the workforce, of
Mm,
maybe even the gig economy, playing a big part where, there's not necessarily an expectation of you're only going to like work for our team or you're only going to work for these things. I think it's kind of creating a space where entrepreneurship and freelancing and all those things end up being like a part of the overall
mhm,
ethos and things that we're doing. So I think that I've definitely like evolved more from that. Like it's definitely, hard. I think it's a little bit harder because we're not rubbing elbows with each other all the time and have
mhm,
that opportunity to kind of, work in that environment. We're doing everything virtually. So that in and of itself is a lot different. But I think for me as a leader, it's like having more of an understanding of that, understanding of like maybe even what I would have needed at that time and try
mm,
to create that win-win-win-win opportunity. And I think speaking to what you said, it's also made me a lot more aware of like what our race is, like how to lean into that superpower, the mission, the vision that we have. Because the more I'm able to do that, the more I am able to differentiate myself, the more
mhm,
I am able to not be quote unquote worried that somebody else is going to poach or steal or take, the people that are on a team or there's not going to be enough hours, just all those things. So I think it's made me more focused on saying like, first of all, who and what is my race? And how can I lean more into that? How can I lean more into the mission, the being and building that media company and doing it
mhm,
better than anybody else? Because the more I can do that, the more it's going to differentiate and distinguish myself and what we're doing. And the
mhm.
more it's going to attract people to say, hey, I really want to be a part of that. So I think that's the really big thing that I've been
Oh,
trying to kind of
good.
lean into more and more.
Yeah, that's a good reflection right there. Want to be part of. Yeah. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. So before we wrap up, and we're going to try to wrap up here sooner or later, let's have some fun with a few rapid fire questions and just play with what we're doing here.
Awesome.
What would you say is a key to success for you?
Key to success is definitely there's a quote that I can see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. So I think a key to success is trying to learn as much from others. But
Mm,
I will also say, like, going back to that running the race, if you can stand on the shoulders of giants, but still, do things in the way that is in alignment with who you are and what you do and your vi mission and vision, and couple those things together, then you have a really awesome opportunity to kind of blaze a trail.
good, 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 good. Kind of leaning into that. If you and I were sitting having coffee at the coffee shop down the street, and somebody walked in and they were talking to their friend about starting up a business. What's one piece of advice you'd give them?
There's a quote that I still say to myself all the time is, you know, people, don't let people tell you the sky is the limit when there's footprints on the moon. For
Mm,
me, I kind of referenced it a little bit where I got a lot of naysayers, a lot of people saying that it's not possible, you should wait, it's not the right time.
mm,
And I'm not gonna say that you can't be very strategic and like I mentioned, I tore my Achilles, so maybe it wasn't the perfect time in hindsight. But I will say if I never took that step, I probably never would have done the things that I've been able to accomplish. So it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to happen, but it happened the way that it did happen, and I'm okay with that. So I would say to that person, hey, you know, if you can't find that environment, listen to a podcast, read a blog, but reach out to Steven and do whatever you have to do. Get around people that can cheer you on and help you to do that
Yeah.
strategically in the best way you can make that happen.
You said something there that I think is worth capturing is I'm okay with that. We have to learn to become okay with the lessons that we've learned because we earned them.
Yes.
Yeah, no, there's some good stuff there. Awesome. All right, so let's play around here. What's one book you're reading now or read recently that's really had some impact on how you're doing your business?
Um, I'll tell you, I every 12 weeks, I do the 12-week year, which in and of itself is another book that's really, really good. But I always love the book, The One Thing, and I read it over and over again
Hmm.
because it helps me to focus. The whole entire thesis of it, what's the one thing that by doing it, everything else is easier and
Yeah,
necessary. Doesn't
good.
mean you do one thing, it just means those dominoes start to progressively get bigger and you start to be able to knock them over.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. You've had a great journey. You've had a lot of fun. You've seen a lot of things. You've earned a lot of things. What are you most proud of in that journey?
You know, I'm most proud of, like I mentioned, having that naivete,
Mm,
or maybe it's the hard-headedness or whatever it is, and however people might define it. But I love that, like I said, I'm a man of faith, so I leaned into my faith. I leaned into what I felt like was my calling, and
hmm
I'm most proud of doing that, despite not always having the pom-poms, the cheering, the shouting, and all those things. So been
hmm
able to do a few things and accomplish some things, and I feel like that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't leaned into who I thought I was.
Very good, very good, very good. On the flip side of that, if you had a magic wand and could significantly improve one piece of your business this evening, what would that be?
I think maybe if I could balance the ambition and the ego with less ambition and less ego sometimes. Sometimes you say, hey, I want to make this happen, and that's sometimes a really great thing. But I think
Hmm.
it's the maybe discernment in terms of knowing when to go, when not to go, when to shoot high, when not to shoot high. I think if I can wave a magic wand and having better discernment,
Hmm.
that would be something I would really lean into because I think that again, there's so much knowledge and information that's out there. I would love to be able to kind of lean more into that. But at the same time, still, have that naivete, have that,
Hmm.
ambition. If I could couple those things together a little bit better and make that concoction, I would definitely love to do that.
Without a little naivete, the journey isn't quite so interesting, is
That's very true.
it? Or painful, depending.
That too. Without an Achilles.
Yeah. Back to that. Yeah, right. All right. So, most important question, how can people who want to know more about what you're doing connect with you, find you, and talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So to make everything easier, I have a site, iamgresh.com. That's IAMGRESH.com. I have links to
Mhm.
all the different businesses, socials,
Mhm.
podcasts, all the things that you can kind of connect with me from there.
Fantastic. And along with that, what's most inspiring to you today?
You know, I think that one of the more divisive things that's happening right now is with AI. And I
Mm.
think the inspirational part of AI is that it's disruptive, but it requires us to think and operate differently. And
Mm.
I think if we have a certain mentality or approach that is not either or, it's both and better, it's not either AI or either human, it's how can we do human and AI? I think that that's where there's a lot of like tremendous opportunity. So as much as it can be scary, as much as it can be exciting, I think it's either or, it's both and better. So it's both scary, both exciting, and I think there's tremendous opportunity if we can kind of lean into that. And I think so many times it's not so much like reinventing the wheel and changing the world. Sometimes it's just looking at how can I do this one thing that I'm doing today better and maybe I can leverage some technology to do that. And starting to think in a different way, I think it provides a lot of tremendous opportunity. So it's AI now, but it's going to be other things in the future. So I think, again, I feel like that's the heart of entrepreneurship, problem
Mm,
solving. How can you
mm.
figure out what this problem is and create a solution? So I think that's what always has, excited me around entrepreneurship.
Your answer gives me memories of the history behind mass producing the automobile and the disruption that that produced, and then mass producing computers that sit on our desk and the disruption and change that that produced. The world didn't come to an end, just different doors had to be opened and different paths had to be followed as a consequence. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think your answer is a good reflection on where we're going next. Yeah, very good. Very good. So it's been great. It's been a good conversation. And you've added some really interesting tidbits to the story of Business Journal and how to make this go forward. So this is very good. I really enjoyed this. For all of you watching, um, save the show. Come back. Gresh has really shared some really good points here, and I think it's worth listening to a second time. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can get notifications every time a new show like this one comes down. And thank you, Gresh. I really appreciate you taking time to join us and share your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Stephen.